We'll now go into roll call unless there's a motion. Drew?
I would like to dispense with roll call due to the time constraints.
Okay, there's a motion to dispense with roll call. Is there a second to that motion? Second from Greg. I will note that we do have a deal where everybody can make a check mark by their name if they're here, so that you can get credit for being here tonight, for what that's worth.
It makes me happy.
It makes our secretary very happy. Any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes got it. We'll dispense with the roll call. Normally we would introduce guests, but we have so many here tonight that I think we'll dispense with that. We do have members of the press here though, and I'd like to at least point out Shelley Poole's with us, and Mike's with us from Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Good to have you with us both. Always happy to have folks here from our media. Now call on the treasurer to make his report.
Hope everybody had a happy new year. We started December with $3,021.56 in the operating account. We've paid some bills. We paid for the catering for the Christmas party. And then we ended December with $3,103.96 in the operating account. We've got a couple pending deposits, or we've got a pending deposit and a couple outstanding checks that haven't cleared. When those net out, the balance in the account will be $3126.62. The balance in the operating account is, the political account is $20,799.42. We had a few more filing fees get deposited in December after the last meeting. And then the balance in the Running Republicans account is unchanged, because we never do anything with that money. That's about it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. You heard the treasurer's report. Are there any questions? If not, Chair would entertain a motion to approve the treasurer's report. Doris, second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Well, that didn't sound very enthusiastic. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That's better. Okay, any opposed? Motion approved, thank you. Ken Yang, our first vice chairman, also Lincoln Dinner. Would you like to make any comments about?
We're looking at February 26th or 27th. We're still working on the speaker, so we should get there here in the next couple of weeks.
We've tried to get Carl Rowe as one of the speaker opportunities, and then the congressman from Texas.
Crenshaw, Congressman Crenshaw. So we're trying to work out details, but we're looking at those 2 days. Those are the 2 available dates at the Benton Event Center. So.
Okay, any questions for Ken? Any other reports from committee chairs? Okay, hearing none. Any other old business? If not, we're going to move into new business. And we have quite a treat for you this evening. There are 2 individuals running for Associate Supreme Court Justice, Position 4, here in Arkansas, and we have both of them with us this evening. By coin flip, the first one to speak will be Chip Welch. Chip, let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you. I want to thank the Saline County Republicans for the opportunity, because this is an important election, and it's also an election that involves all Arkansans. And I want to start with a compliment for the Republican Party of Arkansas. I was talking to Doyle about it before we convened. Amendment 80 was passed 20 years ago, and Amendment 80 provides that all judges run as nonpartisan, independent candidates, devoid of any party affiliation. And you know why that is? The reason is, back when Mike Beebe introduced the thing, and the Democrats were trying to hang on to all those filing fees, the Republican Party suggested that we'll go along with it if you make them nonpartisan so we can run folks, and at the same time, they don't have to deal with the label. And it was sold to the voters. It was a compromise. And I know that's a bad word in our society anymore, but it was sold to the voters as a method to promote good government. Because what's better government than having judges who run without party affiliations, or party pledges, or party promises, or party obligations, because it was presumed, and the voters were told 20 years ago, when I was only middle-aged, the voters were told that that would promote good government, and it has. And so I compliment the Republican Party. I know that both parties were motivated by political motivations. I know that there were gains on both sides and losses on both sides, but the net result was better government in Arkansas. And why is that? Well, this is my third Republican meeting that I've been to this election, and I've been to several before that, in the last two elections where I was elected circuit judge. And it forces us to drop the labels, to go politically naked. I know that in my case is a disgusting thought, but politically naked before groups of people. And what do you find out when you go have, I had lunch with the Republican women of Pulaski County out of Pleasant Valley Country Club. Somebody said, "Judge, that's a bunch of mean old white women." I said, "Yeah, I was raised by one." You go and you meet with these folks, and you have a prayer, and you talk about your grandkids, and you talk about the things that we all have in common in Arkansas, and you end up realizing one thing. And this happens, I hate to tell you, this happens with the Democrat Party too. You find out that these people are people. They're all from Arkansas, and except for Jonesboro, they all hate the football coach. And that it is a remarkable place with remarkable people that if they would work together more, they would probably get a lot more done. But you have to be fair to everybody if you're a judge. I have to, and you'll think about this, every election we have election contests. Every election, the party or both parties challenge something, whether it's a ballot title or an election or whatever. And if you have to go before the Arkansas Supreme Court, and what you end up doing is counting the number of red and blue jerseys before you ever get your case pled, what does that give you as far as confidence in the outcome? Well, I guess you feel good if you got more reds than blues. But you know, it's a long road, has no turns. And we go back to the wisdom of Amendment 80. The genius of Amendment 80 is the judges are supposed to be fair to everybody. I represented a fellow named Philip Aka down in Pine Bluff. His wife, Evangeline, went to have their third child at the hospital, a little boy. She was full term. Doctor didn't want to get out of bed. She died on the operating table. The baby died. Now, we brought a lawsuit. You'll hear that I'm a trial lawyer, and I was, and I am, and I'm going to tell you what kind of trial lawyer I was, and I always identified with. I argued before the court that a fetus was a person for the purpose of bringing a lawsuit, and that wasn't the law in Arkansas. There was a case called Chatelaine that had been decided 6 years earlier, and the judge said, "You can't bring a suit for this little baby." And so we tried the case, we lost the case, we appealed the case. I wrote the briefs. I argued the case before the Arkansas Supreme Court. I got 4-3. The Supreme Court reversed itself after only 6 years and found that a baby, a viable fetus, was a person for the purpose of bringing a lawsuit for wrongful death. That's the kind of trial lawyer I've always tried to be. Now, does that mean I'm going to vote one way or the other on other questions, including abortion? No. It means that sometimes you need Perry Mason to do something besides write a nasty letter to the other side. Sometimes, as Judge Whitmore used to tell me, You don't get to be a trial lawyer just writing letters. You gotta go, you gotta back up. I've represented children who've been sexually abused. First case against a Catholic priest in Arkansas in 1993 was mine. I've represented children who were sexually abused by Jack Walls in Lono. First case. And my kid that I represented was being beat up after school every night because no one wanted to believe their favorite scoutmaster was sexually abusing those kids. And after our case, guess what the parents found out? They found out he was abusing all their children. I have represented children who were troubled teens at our biggest hospital in Little Rock, whose hospital administrator was taking them to his house, plying them with alcohol, and having sex with them. It's always distasteful to be involved in a lawsuit. It's always distasteful to get sued. And people don't like trial lawyers. But when I was one, I tried to, and Paul Bird's over here, he's one of those guys who does the same thing. I tried to have the kind of case that if someone heard about it, they'd say, well, thank God we have an avenue to pursue the things that are most important to us and to vindicate our values. Because you can't always do that, writing a nasty letter. I've been a circuit judge for 7 years. I was elected twice. I have served with pretty good reviews on both sides of the bar, insurance companies and plaintiffs' lawyers. You haven't and you won't hear anything about the runaway verdicts in my court. I have tried to be fair to everybody in Arkansas, including folks who show up without lawyers. We have a lot of those, and the Chief Justice appointed me to a committee that deals with disenfranchised folks who can't afford to hire their own lawyer. I also co-chair a committee that deals with complex litigation. And on my committee, I put Kevin Crass, who's not exactly a Democrat, and I put other members of the Chamber of Commerce and the Republican Party because I wanted business input. I've tried to be fair in everything I've done with all Arkansans because all Arkansans deserve a fair, independent, non-aligned Supreme Court. If you're interested in any of that, I'd appreciate your vote. And if you're not, while you're busy hating me, just remember I came down here to see you.
Thank you, Chip. We won't hold anything against you just because you're from Pulaski County.
Accident at birth.
There you go. Arkansas. Next up, we have Barbara Webb. Barbara, give her a round of applause.
Sure, I'm used to talking in a mic, so is this okay? Can y'all hear me? I'm not too close, not too, okay. Well, first of all, I just want to say I'm honored to be here before y'all tonight. And, you know, many of you know me, and I hope to know some of you better after tonight. So, first of all, I live in Benton, right down the street, here in Saline County, and I've lived here for over 33 years with my husband, Doyle. But I'm more than just Doyle's wife. Which, as some of our liberal editorialists would suggest, that's all I am. But what I'm talking about tonight is some things you may not know, and that's what I want to talk about because I don't think you're going to read it in those columns either. But I am currently the chief judge at Workers' Comp, and I've been on the bench for over 14 years trying cases all over this state, much longer than my opponent. As an ALJ, I was recognized by my peers. I was elected the president of the Arkansas Administrative Law Judge Association, and I served under both a Democrat and Republican governors. I also, as chief judge, have served as a special commissioner on the Workers' Compensation Commission, which is an appellate review. I currently manage eight other judges, I said six, it's 8 other judges and their staffs, much like our Supreme Court manages our circuit courts. In 2000, Governor Mike Huckabee appointed me to serve as a special justice on the Arkansas Supreme Court to help decide the constitutionality on a death penalty case, and that defendant is still on death row. In 2017, I was further honored to be appointed by Governor Asa Hutchinson to serve as a Saline County Circuit Judge to clean up the docket and restore respect to a dysfunctional court left by a judge who had not filed or paid income taxes for very many years. And as you know, I served in that capacity for over a year, and I heard divorces, child custody, handled criminal cases, jury trials, bench trials. And at the time I took that appointment, it was a highly sought after appointment, and it went through a lot of scrupulous interviews. I had left a very secure job as CEO of Workers' Comp. As CEO, I managed 95 employees, including the judges, and I worked closely with the legislature. Some of y'all might be here. On issues of opioid addiction for injured workers that were given overprescribed drugs, unfunded liabilities of a trust fund that was supposed to be there for the most seriously injured people and the survivors of those killed on the job, while we reduced our budget by millions of taxpayer money and made our agency more efficient with new technology. But let me back up a bit. I graduated from the University of Arkansas with a degree in political science. I had the highest grade point of our class and was honored to be accepted and nominated by my professors into America's most prestigious academic honor society, Phi Beta Kappa. I graduated then from the Little Rock School of Law in 1982, and I know I don't look that old, but I've been practicing law. Don't tell my twin sister, she doesn't like me to talk about our age. Licensed to practice law for nearly 40 years. I got a sought-after job at Southwestern Bell, moved to Oklahoma, worked in Oklahoma, then came back to Arkansas during the breakup of the phone company. Some of y'all remember Ma Bell and all that we went through back then. So I think that's where I first learned that there was something called a cell phone. I got married in 1986, and I went to work with the Eichenbaum Law Firm in Little Rock, where I became the first female law partner and tried complex business and criminal litigation during the savings and loan crisis, working alongside the FBI, representing the FDIC. In those cases, we were litigating in both state, federal, and bankruptcy courts. After that, I was elected to serve by our city council as a nonpartisan alderman for the city of Denton. Jim Ed Stillwell, wherever you are. He supplied, I think, lifesavers to all the aldermen during that time. I was also appointed to the Arkansas Ethics Commission by then Democrat Winston Bryant. He was the Attorney General, and they were looking to diversify the Ethics Commission. I could have continued in that law firm and retired quite comfortably, but we had a serious crisis here in Saline County. We had a prosecuting attorney who was running the prosecutor's office as a criminal enterprise, for which he was later convicted and sent to federal prison. Yes, and if you don't know the story or didn't read the Wall Street Journal back then about Dan Harmon, it's time you've heard it. So our entire judicial system here in Saline County and Grant County and Hot Spring County had become totally dysfunctional as a result of Dan Harmon's shenanigans and his corruption. Justice was being denied, delayed, and sold, and no one around here was willing to step forward to take it on. So one day I'd come back from my job and I was complaining about it, like we all do. And my husband looked at me and said, "Well, Barbara, what are you going to do about it?" So I thought, well, the rest is now history. I decided to throw my hat in the ring in politics. I ran for prosecuting attorney. I was elected to represent Saline, Grant, and Hot Spring counties. And then subsequently, I was reelected for 2 more terms. And as a prosecutor, and there are some of you who worked with me, my Chief Deputy Brent Standridge here, some others, former court members, we all worked together and transformed our judicial system and restored fair trials, restored respect for the law, and also you can no longer buy justice in Saline County. And I'm very proud of the work that we all did together. We cleaned up the drug task force. We shut down over 500 meth labs operating in Saline County the first year alone, and thousands over the next few years. I had the crime lab pretty busy. And I started on the crime lab board, so I used to hear from them. And we either put those offenders behind bars, and the jury sent the message that drug manufacturers and dealers were no longer welcome in Saline County. We restored victims' rights. We led efforts to establish a women's shelter, that's still in operation today and expanded today for women and children that are victims of domestic violence. We set up neighborhood crime watch programs because I had comforted parents and grandparents whose children were murdered or lost to the drug wars or to drugs. And I had walked into the courtrooms holding the hands of innocent young victims of sex and abuse. And I'd worked all night alongside our law enforcement to find a young child that had been abducted and taken out into the western part of the county. They were camped out, and we were trying to find that child before that child was murdered. And we did find her. We got her home safe, and that abuser is now serving a life sentence in prison. I'm hopeful that the days of Dan Harmon are gone forever in Saline County. But I'm glad that I was available to do my part of the cleanup and with y'all's help and to improve our judicial system here. And particularly to make our county and our home a better, safer place to live and raise a family. So I hope you can see why I want to serve you on the Arkansas Supreme Court. My legal philosophy has been shaped by my legal and my life experiences. I was a girl raised in Southwest Little Rock with 4 sisters. I had to learn to work with others because we shared one bathroom. I had parents who loved our God and instilled Christian morals and values in us to know Jesus Christ as our Savior. I had parents who thought that formal education was important. My mom said we all girls had to get our college education, which we did. I'm very proud of my sisters. They're all very accomplished in their own professions. But my formal education and my public and private service taught me respect for the Constitution, the rule of law, and the role of our courts to interpret the law and not legislate from the bench. My father, who served in the Army in World War II and in the Navy in Korea, and my 2 uncles who bravely survived POW camps in Japan and Germany, taught me my love for our nation and those who have sacrificed their lives for the freedom we now share. In closing, I want to just comment. Lieutenant Governor Rockefeller and his family have a scripture that meant a lot to them, as it does to me, and I hope it will define me as a justice on the court. I look to Micah 6:8, where we hear, "And what does the Lord require of thee, but to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with our God?" I would appreciate your vote on March 3rd, and between now and then, your prayers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just a reminder, these 2 individuals are running, and one of those 2 will be your new Associate Supreme Court Justice after Mark, actually, I guess, gets sworn in January of 2021. So, important race, and 2 fine individuals running for that spot. We also